All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Can I have a mover and seconder to call a meeting to order, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma, that the special meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of November 26, 2020 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Due to COVID-19, Council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. Members of Council and staff are participating in the meeting electronically, as are the other participants. Residents are able to watch the meeting live on the Township website at www.springwater.ca, listen to the meeting during the meeting by telephone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the ID 883-0116-4710 and then the pound sign. This is available during the meeting only, and for those who want to watch it later, it is live streamed if you go to the Township's YouTube channel, which is accessible on through the Township website. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest tonight, Council? Okay, seeing none, can I have a mover and seconder to call a public meeting to order? Deputy Mayor Coughlin and Councillor Moore, that this public meeting of the Council held under Section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act for applications TU 2020-003 by B. Flack and C. Summer on behalf of 1820876 Ontario Limited, ZB 220-13 by K Ford and ZB 220-006 and OP 2020-001. Additional residence units be called to order at 6:32 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in compliance with Section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to proposed amendments to the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw 5000 as amended. The first part of this meeting is to present the amendments. Following, the public will be given the opportunity to make an oral submission through the Zoom application. Any person wishing to make an oral submission must have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and must have been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed zoning bylaw amendments are passed, the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through myself as chair. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the Township's website. The first item this evening is TU 2020-003 by C. Summer and B. Flack on behalf of 1820876 Ontario Limited at 38 Marnie Lane. I'll now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 29th day of October 2020 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 10 properties in the Township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Marnie Lane. The notice was also placed on the Township website.
Has the Planning Department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
Correspondence has been received from Todd Robinson of 46 Marnie Lane in an email dated November 17th, 2020, including a petition with signatures from 12 residents. from Maple Ridge Custom Homes, 38 Marnie Lane, in an email dated November 18th, 2020, and Janet Noble in an email dated November 20th, 2020.
I will now call upon Brent Spagnol, Director of Planning Services, to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal. Council members and the public can follow along with the presentation, which has been included in the agenda. Mr. Spagnol?
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mary Ellen. The purpose of this meeting is for council to consider comments and to consider an application for a temporary use bylaw for a property municipally known as 38 Marnie Lane. The property is located in Fergusonville and is zoned residential R1 and environmental protection. The property is vacant. It currently has 32 meters of lot frontage along Marnie Lane. It has a total lot area of 3.19 hectares and is currently zoned for residential purposes. The reason for the temporary use bylaw is to provide the property owner with the ability to live in a mobile home until such time as they can complete the construction of a single detached residence on the property. The mobile home is proposed to have a square footage of approximately 1,000 square feet and is temporary in nature. The bylaw that was circulated as part of the application identifies a time frame and a time period for the duration in which the use can continue on the property. And what the bylaw indicates is that the mobile home cannot be located on the property any longer than 6 months after occupancy of the occupancy of the single detached residential dwelling, and may not exceed or may not be on the property in exceedance of 2 years. As part of the application, the property owners or the applicant would be required to submit a $10,000 amount in securities. The purpose of this is to ensure that once the use is no longer needed or the terms of the bylaw have been exceeded, that the township has the ability to go in and remove the mobile home on its own accord. The slide that I'm showing council right now is really just a slide that shows the property layout, the location of the mobile home. One key consideration here is that based on the current location of the mobile home, there appears to be some issues with setbacks and the location of the mobile home. So in effect, what will have to happen prior to any approvals is there will have to be some sort of an agreement from the property owner to bring the mobile home into compliance with the applicable setbacks and the parameters established through the subdivision agreement. The purpose of this meeting is really to receive comments from the public, receive comments from council, and really as far as the application goes, staff will be seeking to have the application referred back to staff for a report once all comments are addressed by the applicant. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Spagnol. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are no commenters registered to make an oral submission in regards to this application.
Okay, at this time, do members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Cabral?
Just wanted to know, reading some of the comments there, they were commenting that this trailer was already in place, and looking at the schematic drawing and the picture of the trailer that was in those, it appeared to me that it didn't appear to be the same trailer. But my other question actually was in respect of the comments where they referred to some township agreements and bylaws about erecting structures. And I just wanted to know from Director Spagnol, if it's simply a trailer that's on site on wheels, that would not qualify as an erected structure, would it?
Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So the reason why the temporary use is needed is because under the zoning bylaw, the R1 zone does not permit what would be considered as a mobile home. It only permits a single detached residential dwelling. So as per the zoning and as per this process, even though it's not a permanent structure per se, because it is a mobile home, under the zoning bylaw, it would not be permitted unless there's a temporary use bylaw brought into effect. In addition, what I would also like to mention with this is that this is similar to situations where you've got homeowners on residential properties where they might be building another home in place of the existing house. So from staff's perspective, it's a matter of just making sure that it's a temporary use and that there is a single detached dwelling built on the property and that the temporary use does not extend any longer than it needs to, given the surrounding area and the nature of the built form and the housing in the subdivision.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Director Spagnell, are there any other structures on the property?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, it's my understanding through the building department upon inspection that there was also a separate building that was constructed on the property without the benefit of a building permit as well. My understanding is that this is utilized for storage and I think for providing cover of some of the homeowners' vehicles, or one of them. That consideration will also have to be brought into effect when staff brings forward a report. Ultimately, the goal will be to try to bring the property into compliance without trying to go towards legal proceedings or anything of that nature. And this bylaw might be the proper mechanism to do that on a temporary basis.
Okay, further questions, Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Director Spagnell. In the subdivision agreement with Maple Ridge, one of the covenants are that no trailer can be on the property. So is this what this bylaw allows for us to sort of disregard this piece of the subdivision agreement?
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Moore. It's my understanding that the covenants that you speak of are covenants that were prepared and set in place between the developer and the owners of the subdivision or owners of properties in the subdivision. Those types of covenants are things that are set in place between agreements between those parties. It's a matter of law in that the township does not have the ability to enforce protective covenants that have been arranged between private parties. So this bylaw wouldn't be affected by that. It would be up to those parties to seek whatever action they needed to if somebody's in violation of whatever protective covenants are assigned to the purchase of those lots.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just since they've done through Mayor Allen to Director Spagnell, since they've done a visit there, the placement that Township would be suggesting for this trailer, should the temporary use bylaw go forward, is it something that is readily visible from the roadway, or is it something that's fairly well obscured by trees and whatnot?
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councilor Cabral. Yeah, it's the property is shielded by trees, and just by nature of its configuration, I would say that the location of the mobile home is not readily in plain sight of view. You would have to actually take a peek around a corner and enter the property, so it is quite hidden. You can see by the presentation that the property is quite large. There's quite a bit of tree cover on the property, so you do have to walk into the property a bit to really see what's been constructed in the back. So yes, it is buffered and shielded from the road.
Okay, no further questions then. Thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning amendment and for showing interest in this matter. We move next to ZB 220-013 by K Ford at 8 Patterson Street. I now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 29th day of October, 2020 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 65 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Patterson Street. The notice was also placed on the township website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to this notice of public meeting?
Correspondence has been received from the Finance Department of the Township of Springwater in an email dated October 29th, 2020, as well as the Director of Public Works in an email dated October 30th, 2020.
I now call upon Brianna Belcour, planner, to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal. Council members and the public can follow along with the presentation, which is included in the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Allen and Council. Please just bear with me while I start to screen share the presentation. Okay, can everybody see that there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hold on, it just click here. Okay, so zoning bylaw amendment application ZB 2020-013 by Karen Ford and Kathleen LaBelle is proposed to rezone 8 Patterson Street to the general commercial exception zone to permit the replacement and expansion of an existing legal non-conforming single detached dwelling. The current single detached dwelling has existed since 1920, predating the first zoning bylaw for the village of Annabelle, and is in very poor condition. As the property is now currently zoned general commercial, a standalone residential use is not permitted outright, and thus the use is non-conforming. As an increased area, height, and ultimately volume is proposed for the replacement dwelling, a planning application is required to facilitate its construction. The new single detached dwelling is proposed to have a total ground floor area of approximately 151.63 square meters and have a maximum height of approximately 7.01 meters. It will be located no closer to the front or south property lines than the existing dwelling and continue to feature full municipal services. A planning analysis of the application has been completed and is detailed in the staff report included on the agenda. Staff is recommending approval of the application pending the results of tonight's public meeting. Thank you, and should you have any questions, please feel free to ask myself. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. No members of the public have registered to make comments on this application.
Thank you. Do members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Cabral?
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a comment. I know this location there, and actually I have, I believe, spoken with the person who's looking to rehabilitate that area. That's the only way I can put it. It's a fairly rundown building that's there right now, and I would like to see this go forward merely due to the fact that it would bring a substandard property up to a nicer looking piece of real estate in the township and certainly enhance that that stretch of the roadway. So just a comment there. It's nice to see that even though they have to make some changes possibly to zoning in order to make it happen, that there is some new development going in and doing away with some of the old style buildings that are, this one here in particular is quite dilapidated.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? All right, thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to this proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. The third item we're dealing with is ZB 220-006 and OP 220-001, being additional residential units, zoning bylaw and official plan amendments initiated by the Township of Springwater with respect to lands within the entire geographic area of the Township of Springwater. Clerk, please confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was provided on the 29th days of October 2020 to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. The notice was also placed on the Township's website on the 30th day of October 2020 and was placed in the Township of Springwater newspaper on the 29th day of October 2020.
And has the Planning Department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
Correspondence was received from Bob and Joanne Mitchell of 1316 Highway 26 in a letter dated November 4th and an email dated November 10th, 2020, from the Simcoe County District School Board in a letter dated November 16th, 2020, from the Director of Building Services for the Township of Springwater in a letter dated November 16th, 2020, from Jennifer Rogers of 11 Robert Boulevard in an email dated November 16th, 2020, David and Patricia Hochvar of 22 Davenport Drive in an email dated November 19th, 2020, Colleen Murphy of 1117 Fox Farm Road in an email dated November 20th, 2020, Earl Graham of 164 Queen Street East in a letter dated November 24th, 2020, and from Dennis Laycock of 3778 Horseshoe Valley Road West in an email dated November 25th, 2020.
Thank you. I now call upon Deborah Ann Lisk, planner, to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of this proposal. Council members and the public can follow along with the presentation, which has been included in the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see that now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe if we get rid of the slides on the left, it'll expand a bit.
There we go. Is that good?
That's good.
Perfect. So good evening, Mayor Allen, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Deborah Ann Lisk. I'm a planner here at the Township, and I'll be presenting tonight for the public meeting for the applications to amend the Township official plan and the zoning bylaw to permit additional residential units. So just as a brief overview, just to put on just a few notes of where we are in the process and what we've done. So on February 5th, Council approved Township's initiative to move forward with this process to update our official plan and zoning bylaw to permit additional residential units. In September of this year, staff held an educational session with Council to provide some more information on key considerations and to gather some feedback to help draft our policies for these types of units. So staff have now drafted the official plan and zoning bylaw policies, and that's why we're here tonight to gather comments from Council and members of the public, as well as various Township departments on the policies. And then we'll be moving forward, looking at possibly modifying if that's needed, and then presenting a recommendation report with the final drafted policies for approval. So as Mayor Allen said, the subject lands are the entire geographic area of the Township of Springwater. The policies would apply to the entire township. The purpose of the applications is to align the Township official plan and zoning bylaw with provincial policies to permit additional residential units. The effect of the proposed amendments is to permit the use of additional residential units on properties that permit single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings. So just as a brief policy overview, I'm not going to go too far into this, but the province has updated many provincial policy documents for land use planning to allow these types of units since 2012. More recently in 2019, they've removed some barriers to allow these types of units to ensure that members of the public can create these units on their property. Furthermore, the County of Simcoe has policies in the official plan for lower tier municipalities to permit these types of units. They also have funding opportunities through the secondary suites funding program to allow for some funding for these types of units. So just a brief slide here on the Planning Act. So the Planning Act requires that official plans permit these types of units within single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings, as well as in accessory structures to those residential uses. The Planning Act then ensures that zoning bylaws must also permit these types of units. So just a few examples of how these units can look in the community. The first photo here shows a unit located in the lower half of a structure with a side entrance. The second photo here shows a unit above a detached garage. So these units can come in different shapes and sizes. They can be located within the dwelling as well as in an accessory structure as shown by this slide. So now I'm going to get into the drafted official plan policies. I'm not going to read them word for word, but if there are specific questions that come up regarding a policy, I can touch on that at that time. So in summary, these policies are going to allow the township to permit these units within a single detached, semi-detached, a townhouse dwelling, as well as an accessory building on the same lot. They will be required to be serviced appropriately and meet any building code, fire code requirements, as well as any other permits that would be necessary from the Conservation Authority or Road Authority would also need to be obtained. A few other points of the policies here we've included. Should the township want to establish a registering or licensing program in the future, the policy is there within the policies. We've also included that all applicable consent policies, so severances, would still apply to these units. Additionally, as a surplus farm dwelling severance policies shall not be used to create separate lots for additional residential units. So just a few comments on some criteria for these units. They need to be subordinate in size and scale to the primary dwelling on the lot. It needs to be integrated into the surroundings, and any other siting requirements related to servicing, parking, and access should be satisfied. The next slide here outlines the drafted zoning bylaw provisions with the definition for an additional residential unit, as well as a primary dwelling. Any additional residential unit shall be developed in the accordance with the following provisions. They should be permitted on lands to permit single detached, semi-detached, or row house, townhouse, and located within a detached accessory building on the same lot as a primary dwelling. A maximum of 2 units is permitted, 1 within the dwelling and 1 within the accessory building. 2 parking spaces are also required, and that's 2 spaces for the unit and 2 spaces for the primary dwelling.
I'm sorry, Mayor Allen, I have to interrupt. I'm sorry, Planner Lisk, but your slide presentation is not playing on my screen. Just the first one is. That's okay. I just need to know what slide you're on so I can look at it on my other laptop I have here.
Okay, I'm on slide 10 right now. Is everyone else's screen okay?
Yes, I can see it. I don't know about the others, but
Yes, I could see it.
Yeah,
Okay,
same thing with me on the last one. The presentation came up, but that was it. It just came up to the opening screen and it hasn't progressed since. So thanks for telling me you're on 10.
no problem. So back to just the parking requirements. I know this came up at our educational session. 2 spaces would be required for the additional unit, as well as 2 spaces for that primary dwelling. That's in accordance with our parking provisions under the zoning bylaw right now. The units will need to be serviced appropriately, as well as any health and safety requirements, and be able to meet the Ontario Building Code and Fire Code. Just a few other comments regarding separate entrance should be required for the additional residential unit. And we've included that this entrance should be on the rear or side of the primary dwelling, unless there's an existing entrance that the applicants can use. Just going to go to the next slide now.
Slide 11.
Yes, slide 11.
Councilor
This
Cabral,
slide.
1 second, please. Councilor Cabral, your card's up again.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mayor Allen. This, we're just passing over. Are you going to take questions at the end, Planner Lisk, or would you prefer for us to ask for them as we go along?
Yeah, no, we're going to have comments from the public, and then as we usually
Fair enough.
we're gonna
Thank
have
you.
questions from council. Go ahead, Planner Lisk.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Allen. So just a few comments on the size of the additional residential units. We separated for units that are within the primary dwelling, as well as units in accessory buildings. So we've put a cap on the units within the dwelling. So it has to be 40% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling, unless it's located in the lower half, the basement. And in that case, it can be 50%. I will just touch on a few points for the accessory building provisions for a unit located in a detached building. They are capped at 40% of the total gross floor area of the primary dwelling and to a maximum of the permitted accessory building floor area for that applicable zone. Now that means that detached units will be capped at whatever the accessory building maximum is for that property in that zone. So for properties in the residential 1 zone, you're looking at a 699 square foot structure. For properties in the larger lots, like an agricultural zone, the maximum would be 1,238 square feet. Now, those units detached will have to meet the setbacks for a primary dwelling to ensure that there's larger setbacks from property lines than there would be for just an accessory structure. So I think that concludes my formal presentation. Like I said, we are not providing a recommendation at this time. Staff will gather all of the comments from council and members of the public, as well as all of the letters submitted to date, and modify any policies if needed, and provide a recommendation report at a later meeting for council's consideration. So I think now there's a few members of the public that have oral submissions, so we'll go over to them, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Lisk. So I'll call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who've registered to ask questions or make comments regarding the application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. 3 members of the public have registered to make an oral submission with regards to these applications. We can start with Susan Laycock at 3778 Horseshoe Valley Road West. Susan, you may now address the council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just have a question. A cellar and a basement are defined as 2 different things. So the definition of a cellar is 35.26 and a basement is 35.13. So a cellar is not included in the definition of gross floor area, and yet Springwater has used to determine the gross floor area of a dwelling. So why is a basement but not a cellar included in the definition? And will cellars continue to be used, although they're not included in the definition, in calculating the gross floor area of a secondary unit? Thank you.
Planner Lisk.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Susan. The gross floor area calculation is from the exterior walls of a dwelling. Depending on where a cellar is located, if it's within the exterior walls, it would be included in gross floor area. It's difficult to say. I would like to see, or a full review would be able to take place once a drawing is submitted. That's how these units will be reviewed. When a building permit is submitted, planning staff will be reviewing it to make sure it complies with the bylaw. I understand your concerns regarding the definition of a cellar versus basement, and staff have noted that, and And we'll be looking to update that through our zoning bylaw update after our official plan review as a housekeeping item. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. And any other question that you had, or?
No, that's all. That was just looking for clarification on that issue.
Sorry, I meant Ms. Laycock.
That's it.
Thank you.
I wondered who Jones was, but
No, I'm reading the wrong line here.
that's okay.
Thank you very much. So if you disconnect, we'll go to the next person, please. And that is Denise Jones, I believe, moderator.
Yes, it is. Denise, you may go ahead.
Hello, Councillor and Mayor. We just wanted to say that we were interested in what the plans are because we are interested in building a secondary suite, and we support what we have seen so far.
Thank you very much for those comments, and we'll certainly be glad to help you through that process. Okay, if you would disconnect, then I will turn to members of council with questions or comments regarding this application.
Mayor Allen, if I may, we actually have one more
Okay.
commenter just added last minute. Sorry about that.
Okay. No,
Thank you. It's Ali Hosanzada, 9 Redmond Crescent. Ali, you may now address council.
Thank you, Mayor Allen.
yes, sir.
Hello,
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the only thing I did not understand, I'm lost in the measurement of the basement. I have a 3,200 square feet house. I just want to know, can I use the entire my full basement, which is around like 1,500 square feet? Can I use the entire basement for a unit or no? That's one question. And again, as the other public member, I'm here to support this because one of the reasons I bought this house because it had a separate entrance, and there are many houses in my subdivision. They have the separate entrance. I would like to make a unit. You know, when I get retired, I can rent it out and I can use it.
Planner Lisk.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Ali, the way that the drafted policies are right now for the zoning bylaw is it would allow you to use the full basement for a basement apartment. But whenever you're ready to apply, should these policies get approved, I'd be happy to review a floor plan to ensure that everything is okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I turn to council. Comments, questions? Councillor Cabral and then Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess I was reviewing some of the comments made also by our own internal staff with respect to some of the sections, whether they were applicable or enforceable. And one I was wondering about, and I find it a bit challenging because I think it might preclude some folks from taking advantage of this, not as the providers, but as the people who would be looking to rent or looking to reside in one, is the section that suggests there no home occupations would be permitted. And I just want to know how that works out, because there's a number of people that do work from home, and some home occupations do not take up much space or make very much noise. So I'm just trying to get a handle on that. Is that not something that the homeowner would put into their lease, that would be something that might not be permitted? And I'm just wondering whether or not the township should include that in this particular zoning bylaw, as it does, suggest putting some restraints on folks that, they might have a business that they've been doing for a number of years. They're still looking for affordable housing. So I just, that's my comment on that one.
Go ahead, Planner List.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. Staff found that it was appropriate to include that, as the zoning bylaw has specific provisions for home occupations, and only permits them in a single detached dwelling, as well as only specific zones within the township. So for instance, these units will be permitted township-wide, and home occupation is not. That does not preclude you from having a home office if you're, working remotely, as many people are nowadays. Home occupation is a little bit more involved, and I'd be happy to provide more information on the way that we define it, as well as the provisions that are located in the zoning bylaw, and have more of a discussion with yourself to see if it's appropriate to include it in these provisions. But I think, yeah, that's a good comment, and I'll look into that further for you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to throw my 2 cents worth in there. I support this wholeheartedly. I'm glad the province came out with this. There's such a housing shortage in our province. But I think it goes a lot further than that. I think it addresses the fact that being able to look after older siblings in the family. I know in the rural areas there, I've had different farmers approach me about this, where they could have like an add-on accessory or a standalone where they can stay and reside on the farm and transition the farm over to their younger ones, but give them a place to live and be on their own, and that's huge when they've been there all their lives. But it's very welcomed in the rural community, from what I hear, and in the it just overall, I support this, and I welcome what staff is doing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other comments? Okay, thank you to all who participated in this public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning amendment and official plan amendment, and for showing interest in this matter. Can I have a mover and seconder to adjourn this public meeting, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin and Councillor Ma, that this public meeting of council held under section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act for applications TU 220-3 by B. Flack and C. Summer on behalf of 1820876 Ontario Limited, ZB 220-13 by K. Ford, and ZB 220-006 and OP 220-1 additional residential units, does now adjourn at 7:13 p.m. All those in favor? Okay, now we move to direction. Following the public meeting, can I have a mover and seconder for each of these, please? Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Cabral, that council, having held a public meeting in accordance with section 34 and 39 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, P13 as amended on a temporary use bylaw application TU 220-3 by 1820876 Ontario Limited, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? Carried. Next at 4.2 is with respect to the Ford matter, 8 Patterson Street. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma, that the report from the planner regarding ZB 220-13 Ford dated November 26, 2020 be received, and that subject to comments received at the public meeting, a bylaw be presented to council for consideration and approval on November 26, 2020. All those in favor? Is carried. And a mover and seconder for the next item at 4.3. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, the council, having held a public meeting in accordance with section 34 and 39 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, P13 as amended, on additional residential units, OP 220-1 and ZB 220-6, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? And it's carried. Moving on to the bylaws at item 5.1. A mover and seconder for the bylaws listed, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral, that the bylaw listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk, that being 5000-326 re ZB 220-13 re Ford. All those in favor? As carried. Confirmatory bylaw 6.1, mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie, that bylaw 220-099 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the special meeting held on November 26, 2020 listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. And finally, an adjournment motion, please. Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 7:16 p.m. to meet again in a regular meeting on December 2nd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for your participation and good night.